after the party successfully hunted down and captured an evil necromancer that they sent away with She's brother. They were left to figure out what to do with the undead elven bard. Well aware this undead elf was part of an experiment to maintain its intelligence even as a walking corpse, they recognise it could pose a serious threat to them. Yet before they have the chance to decide whether or not to rebury him, Tywin the Bard declares himself the new party leader and commands them to start marching onwards, for adventure awaits! As the party settles down for the night, as their journey to Lostwick continues, She excuses himself, as per usual, to go pray to his goddess Valicia. Carrick, deciding that minding his own business is for cowards, trails behind She to go see what this mystery goddess is all about. Meanwhile, Tywin decides to get to know Nadar better, whether he likes it or not. When Tywin points out Nadar's obvious dragon lineage, Nadar confirms his father was also a bard before he died. Tywin approves. But naturally, he can't resist pointing out how much more famous he must have been than Nadar's father. Despite Carrick's best efforts to sneak behind She, the Tabaxi's watchful eyes catches the elf in the act almost immediately. Thankfully, She doesn't mind, having nothing to hide anyway, and Carrick is likewise impressed by She's perception skills. The beginning of a budding friendship reveals itself, as She invites Carrick to stay and sit with him while he prays to Valicia. When Nadar asks if Tywin is bothered by his new undead skeletal appearance, the once handsome bard is shocked to learn he no longer has his winning smile. And as She prays to Valicia, still wondering why he has no memory of his family, he attempts to speak with his goddess, despite knowing she rarely answers. But this time, when She asks why he has lost his memories, he is surprised to actually receive an answer. Valicia speaks only to him, as Carrick watches confused, telling She, "It was your mentor. He betrayed you as much as he betrayed me." Then She is given a vision of his mentor, standing over She while he slept, casting a memory spell to wipe away any connection he had to his previous life. With the knowledge that Meryn recently abandoned him in a forest while he slept, She's eyes open in a panic, as he realizes the one who raised him is now yet another sworn enemy. By the next morning, all in the party have learnt of She's revelation, and they continue on for the next few days until they finally arrive at the remote village of Lostwick. Located beyond the Delian woods, poised atop a large mountain in a secluded valley, the party feels as though they've stumbled upon a peaceful paradise. Before the party have time to put a leash on their new undead bard, Tywin wanders into a nearby store. Carrick leads the rest inside, eager to hurry up and meet with Vulcan, the Grand Monk of the monastery. They end up having to pry Tywin away as he shamelessly attempts to flirt with the married shopkeeper. Back on track, they all come to stand before the Lost Lake at the end of the village, where they see a figure sitting upon a massive floating boulder. Then, almost without warning, they watch as the ancient turtle launches himself backwards from the boulder, backflipping and landing gracefully before them. Then, the evidently blind Vulcan raises his arms and splits the floating boulder in half, returning them to either side of the mountain. The party, all aware they are in the presence of someone immensely powerful, all bow to show their respect, and no one does so faster than Carrick himself. Vulcan then tasks Carrick with his new mission on behalf of the monastery. Kill Dariss Toothtaker. Nadar alone seems to fully appreciate the weight of that task, yet Carrick and the others have no such reservations. To aid Carrick in his task, Vulcan presents him with a leather pouch filled with a fine blue powder. Then, to Nadar's surprise, Wollen asks him to step forward, and presents him with a deck of many things to hold on to. Nadar questions how he could possibly have the one and only deck, when they all saw that it was kept at the magical emporium across the island. In response to that question, Wollen merely smirks knowingly, without a word. Once Wollen has dismissed them, Nadar immediately tries to reason with them all, hoping they understand the danger of trying to go up against Dariss. But Carrick, utterly unwilling to even entertain the idea of disobeying an order from Wollen, shuts Nadar down immediately, and instructs them all to prepare for their trip to Dale. After agreeing a full meal and a night's sleep would be best before heading off, she decides to visit the monastery's archive. Mostly just curious to learn more about the world and its history after spending most of his life sheltered in the forest, he ends up staying all night, learning all that he can. By morning, when the party comes to find him and bring him along for their travel, it seems that she must have found something especially interesting, as he declines to join them to Dale. Slightly confused why he couldn't just bring the book with him, they respect his choice and set off without the tabaxi for their next mission. They make good time, and manage to arrive not far outside the city of Dale by sundown. After setting up camp for the night, Carrick's meditations are immediately interrupted by what could only be described as a vision from a god. Specifically, Natarius, the god of time, who holds dominion over the astral plane and is worshipped by the monastery that acts on his behalf. Until now, Carrick had never spoken with the god directly, a privilege that was reserved only for Wollen. Natarius informs Carrick that he and his companions have a role to play in the fate of this universe, and instructs him to sprinkle a pinch of blue powder upon the fire. Supposedly, this will help ensure fate spins along as it should. When the vision ends, Carrick wastes no time following the instructions of a literal god, only to be slightly disappointed when he sees it only turns the campfire blue. Maintaining his iron faith in the monastery and their gods, he simply goes to sleep along with the others in the hopes that it bears fruit by morning. Yet morning comes, and nothing but the ashes of the campfire remain. Not wanting to waste any more time, however, Carrick pushes the party on ahead to Dale. They immediately run into a problem when they find the city gates being guarded by Toothtakers now. However, Tywin steps forth to prove how useful he can be, by charming one of the two friends to ruthlessly attack and rip out the heart of this confused buddy. Somewhat concerned how easily Tywin could pull that off, they watch as the bard starts casually asking the charmed Sharkin if he's seen Dariss recently. The charmed Sharkin confirms that Dariss was at a nearby safe house just down the street early this morning, where he dropped off several crates of supplies that he was moving out of his old base. Tywin happily encourages the Sharkin to go over and tell the guards he was ordered to grab some of the supplies for Dariss that he can bring back to the party. Nadar can't believe his eyes when the Sharkin quickly returns with that dragon blood potion amongst the tools and maps inside. It seems Dariss had been busy too, as the blood of an actual dragon had already been added again, and Nadar was able to retain his wings upon downing the bottle. After Tywin let the Sharkin return to his post before the charm person's spell wore off, they started looking for a lead that would help them find Dariss's current whereabouts. Following a commotion from a crowd all gathering at the Well of the People in the lower districts, they blend into the crowd to see Dariss beginning a speech. Known for his decent speeches in the past, the party watches as he seems to inspire the masses despite his recent violent takeover, as he promises to purge Wolen of corruption. The party learns that he has somehow amassed much more Sharkin Toothtakers, that he is preparing to lay siege against Lebriwolf and take down the corrupt government there as well. Carrick, who is already tasked with taking down Dariss by his monastery, now learns that Dariss is planning to attack his cousin, Viscount Cyrus Greenhill, at Lebrie. The rest of the party have to make a real effort to convince the elf not to attack Dariss in the middle of the crowd right here and now. Making a quick stop first to stock up on weapons and supplies at the general goods store, the party worry about Carrick's undying sense of duty to his monastery and the pursuit of peace at any cost. But before Carrick has time to get them all into serious danger, the monk and his new bag of ball bearings is confronted at the door by a Toothtaker marching in. The Toothtaker, seemingly riding high from his new position of power in the city, barks at the elf to step aside for him. Carrick, not being a big fan of bullies, decides he's not in the mood to be barked at, and swiftly begins to put the Sharkin in his place. With the Toothtaker showcasing the power of a Sharkin, Carrick decides to get creative, and uses his new ball bearings to trip the Sharkin back down the stairs onto the muddy street. And Carrick chases him down to finish him off, followed closely by the concerned party, as they find themselves being boxed in by more alerted Toothtakers. Carrick, unfazed, easily does a few monk flips, and parkours to the top of a nearby building. Nadar then makes quick use of his new wings to fly Tywin and Squilliam up onto the roof behind Carrick. Able to avoid the sightlines and reach of the angry Toothtakers below, they traverse their way towards the docks via rooftop until they suddenly spot Dariss on the street. It seems Dariss was just arriving with several of his men at his branding warehouse near the docks. Carrick, evidently impatient to stop Dariss, no doubt helped by his increasing grudge towards the man, calls out to him from the rooftop. The rest of the party watch in horror, desperately trying to stop him, as the confident monk informs Dariss of his mission to take him out. Dariss, smiling at the challenge, happily responds to Carrick's taunt by teleporting right behind him on the roof and smashing Carrick's head right off his shoulders. Now just panicking, the rest of the party attempt to scatter from the rooftop, Tywin risking a dive off the roof, while Nadar soars into the air with Squilliam in his arms. Tywin is the next to be crushed, and Nadar, wanting to give Squilliam a chance at least, drops him off on a nearby building with roof access. Then, in an act of desperation, Nadar pulls out the deck of many things, and draws from it. He draws a card that simply says Rogue, then disappears without any apparent effect happening. Needing something a little more than that, he risks drawing again, this time curiously pulling the Fate card. He learns as he holds the card in his hands that at any time he wishes in the future, he could re-summon the card to his hands and change one single thing about history that could, in theory, drastically change the whole world forever. Somewhat intimidated by such power at his fingertips, even in the dire situation that he faces, he isn't sure if he should so impulsively use this one-time power right now. But that hesitation cost Nadar dearly, as Dariss teleports above him in mid-air while he stares at the cards, and brings down his warhammer, killing the Dragonborn mid-flight. And so ends the party and their unorthodox adventure across Wollen. Or at least it would have seemed, until they woke up next to the campfire all together again. And while the rest of them try to figure out if they're dead or not, Carrick puts together the meaning of the blue powder that he sprinkled into the campfire the night before. And just like that, the whole party realizes they are in a time loop!